Welcome to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Hall and Mike Steffes from Montrose PD in Colorado. Chief Blaine Hall has 29 years in law enforcement, the past 7 as police chief. A main focus of his leadership has been mental health and fitness for his staff. To support this, he recruited Mike Steffes as the MPD's professional development manager. Mike is a retired police chief from Wisconsin and a master instructor with ICP. He teaches leadership in police organization, curriculum, and first level leadership program. Welcome to the show, Chief Hall and Mike Steffes. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, Paige.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so we have connected a few times. I love what you guys stand for. I love your attitude towards wellness and leadership. I think that it's so in line with our podcast and, my work in the law enforcement wellness space. And so I wanted to first fill our listeners in on the dynamic between the two of you. Give us a little bit of information.
Sure. I guess I can go for it. Start. So here, it's been probably about a year and a half ago. Just like any other law enforcement agency really in the country, we were having a very difficult time with recruiting, retention, all those different types of things that all other agencies were having an issue with. And I came to our city manager, and it was a little bit of an out-of-the-box kind of idea. We really wanted to look at potentially hiring someone that could continue the conversation with new cadets, new recruits. We were using oftentimes sergeants. We had a recruiting team, our command staff officers, to really follow up on conversations when we were presenting at academies or colleges. And born out of that idea was not just the position of professional development manager, but also the person. And our city manager had formerly worked for a municipality in Wisconsin where Mike was the police chief. And they had a great relationship. I think it's probably been 15, 20 years ago now, maybe at least. Mike has been a police chief and just retired from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, also working at the Attorney General's office in Wisconsin for well over
18 years in executive capacity.
Yeah. And so he came with a ton of experience. Our city manager knew that he was potentially looking for another job opportunity. So we weren't just getting someone who could help us recruit. We were getting an individual who could really raise us up in the components of leadership because of Mike's professional relationships with the IACP and specifically the Leadership and Police Organization School, but also his just tremendous experience in wellness and what wellness looks like for police agencies. Wellness is something I think the word's thrown around a lot, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And it can mean different things to line level staff versus administrators. And wellness isn't just for the law enforcement officers that are working within your agency. It's for all of your staff, your civilian staff as well. And so Mike really comes in with all of that experience, and then his unique perspective on how leadership really complements wellness. And something that he says all the time, which is leading with curiosity and leading with gratitude. And we had a situation just the other day where if we hadn't have led with those two, core components, then the situation could have turned out differently. And so Mike has really uplifted our agency and other agencies around the region as we start teaching leadership courses. Mike is teaching one tomorrow, an executive development class, where we have about 40 students in the class, and it's upper level management and budgeting and PIO stuff. But it also comes with a wellness component, because if you're an executive in law enforcement these days, it's something you have to pay attention to. It's something that is your responsibility.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow. I was sitting there and I'm like, I want someone to talk like that about me. What a huge compliment for him to say those nice things about you, Mike. And anything that you want to add to that, I'm all ears. And there's definitely some things I want to dive into that Chief just said as well. So I'll let you take the floor first.
No, I just want to appreciate what Chief Hall has done and the vision that he and our city manager's office had to be able to bring this to the western slope of Colorado and here in Montrose. Not, I'm not aware of very many police departments in the country that took the step of bringing somebody in specifically not only for wellness coordination, but also to create leadership programming to make sure that the entire department can be elevated. We often throw that term wellness around, but we forget about how every first line supervisor, mid-level manager, and chief are responsible for the wellness of their personnel. And we just heard this last week at a conference: healthy people help people, hurt people hurt people. And it's really true. The more that we can increase the wellness and the happiness of our personnel, their physical abilities, their financial security, the more we can elevate all of those in their personal lives, the better they're going to be able to serve our communities, the more retention that we're going to have. And when it does come time to recruit people, the more recruiting applicants that you're going to have, because they're going to see an agency that invests in their personal well-being.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, I think everyone wants to, especially the younger generation, I think we're starting to see that it's not always about money. It's about, are you going to take care of me? What are those things that are going to help me have a long and successful career? I appreciate it. And I actually noticed this in the bio that was sent over to me. You said staff. It wasn't just sworn. And you mentioned that, Chief, you're like, it's for everybody. And that stuck out to me when I was reading it, because I think the words that we use really matter, and we have to be inclusive with the way that we present things. And I appreciate you talking about how wellness is dynamic. And I've said this before, but I actually think that you put it in a different perspective for me. So I appreciate that. But everyone is going to need different things at different periods in their life and their career. And so to understand that the young new officer that just graduated from the academy, they're going to need different resources, and it's going to be a different conversation than someone who's, maybe 20, 25 years into their career and they're looking for retirement. So for you guys to zoom out and say, hey, like, we recognize that everything that we're doing is for everybody in the organization, not just our sworn personnel, but we're also going to break that down even more and try to understand what each role is looking for and needs. And then we're going to break that down even more and try to understand what each individual person within those roles needs, because you could have a group of 25 brand new officers, and every single person might need something else or might learn a different way or have different maybe home environments that they're working with. So I really appreciate your focus on like really kind of diving even deeper into the conversation. And I agree with you. I think that sometimes it's hard to define what wellness is, because sometimes it is a little bit of maybe I call it cotton candy. It looks really pretty, but then when you kind of dive into it, it's what word am I looking for? There's no substance behind it, right? It's like, it looks really good, but then where's the substance? So I appreciate what you guys said. And I want to go back to leading with curiosity and gratitude. Can you talk a little bit about what that means in action?
I'm going to ask you to do that. I think you're the individual who brought this, from a leadership and wellness perspective. So I'd love to hear about it. Every time he talks about it, I learn something new. So
love it.
So looking at the gratitude, we hire people to come into the law enforcement profession who want to take care. If you ask any cop, why did they become a cop? Or when you're a chief and you're interviewing them, they all give the same answer: I want to help people. And so we bring people in that want to help serve their community and have a service mentality. They believe in the commitment of the mission of the police department. And then we send them to the academy. And in the academy, we teach them not to trust anybody, that they have to be in control of everything at all times. Control is not a 50-50 proposition. We teach them that you can't really trust. Everybody's going to lie to you, or they're going to try to hurt you I should say, and or they're going to try to hurt you. Keep everybody at arm's distance. They come out of 18 weeks of an academy and they go into PTO training, where they get another 16 weeks of don't let people be within hand's reach of you, don't trust people. And so after all of that, we then reward them every time that they're successful at catching bad guys or getting somebody to flip who lied to them. So we have created strong neural pathways and neural links to distrust. And then they're out on the road and their job is to go find people doing something wrong. So they're in a negative mindset, again, creating a neural pathway, looking toward negativity and looking for bad parts of society. Then they come inside the police department or they go home to their families and we wonder, why are they so negative? They were so optimistic when we first hired them. They were an idealist when we hired them. Now all of a sudden they're this person that distrusts everybody, including management. Why is that? Well, because we've created a 6-lane highway of negativity in their head, and we have allowed the positive area of a normal human being to get overgrown with weeds and rocks in their brain. The more that we can help them lead with gratitude, happiness, and curiosity, the more that we're creating neural links to be able to be a positive, well-rounded human being. And so we try to, in our training programs, like first day one, when we do introductions, it's tell me 3 things you're happy for, that you have gratitude for. And we start making people go down those positive neural pathways of gratitude so we can build that serotonin and dopamine and strong neural links to the positive areas of the brain that we have literally, as a profession, removed or made difficult to access. And so, and then from the curiosity standpoint, really it came from watching Ted Lasso, which is an amazing TV show if you haven't watched that. But he gives a Walt Whitman quote, "Be curious, not judgmental." And when I look at the best officers I've ever worked with, the best supervisors I've ever worked with, they have led with curiosity. They don't start their interaction with a community member, or a supervisor doesn't start their interaction with, why did you do this? Or like, you did this. It's help me understand what happened here. And leading with that curiosity allows the other person to feel not confronted, but it also keeps the open mindset of, I can share my story. And that's what we all want. We all want a voice in the decision-making process. We all want to feel like we can be heard, and that helps us be healthy. So if we lead with gratitude and curiosity in the police department, it has been proven through procedural justice that our personnel will treat the community in those higher elevated ways too, which makes for a more legitimate police department and better policing style for people.
Wow, thank you. There's so much I want to unpack in here. So I recently saw a quote, and I don't know if you agree with this, but it said, "Happy people aren't thankful, thankful people are happy." And it made me think about this idea of gratitude, right? Gratitude's a practice. And to your point, your brain is going to look for evidence of things that exist, right? And so if you're constantly looking, or you're trained to constantly look for negativity, your brain is going to wire itself to look for negative things, and vice versa. If you start looking for positive things, things that are good in the world, you're going to find more evidence of good things in the world. And so you're speaking my language. Gratitude is proven to rewire your brain. And so I love that that's something that you guys teach. It is a habit, it's mental training. And how can we create consistency with that? Because we know that it's easier to look for the negativity in things sometimes. It's easier to allow that stress to kind of overpower everything else. And you have to actively remind yourself of the things that are good. And you have to hold on to those sometimes, especially in the hard times. You have to, try to attach yourself to the good stuff. And so there are a few things that I teach people too. And I don't know if you guys do this within your own lives, but how can we make this a daily habit? How can this be something where every day, when you get in the shower, you say 3 things that you're grateful for, or even just one? Can we do one thing? Then we can build from there. It's called habit stacking. So it's not asking you guys to create more time in your schedule, but how can you effectively use the time that's already in your schedule? Maybe that's on your commute, to and from work. Maybe it's, just reminding yourself of those things that you're grateful for. So I really appreciate you introducing that into training, because it is something that we have to look at in order to create mental longevity and resiliency.
So Paige, one of the things that I recommend and talk about in class is we all wear Apple Watches that tell us to stand up every hour, or a ring that tells you it's about time to move. At the same time that you stand up, just give three things you're thankful for.
Yep.
And when I do it in class, I tell people, just close your eyes and think of three things you're thankful for right now. I often ask the class, and after that, how many were able to stop at three? And keep in mind, if you have kids and a spouse, name each of them individually.
Mm-hmm.
How many of us can stop at three? And ultimately, when you just start looking at the fact that if we have a roof over our head, clean water, and food in the refrigerator, we're better than 70% of the world population right there. Be thankful for just those little things. And pretty soon you start seeing blessings everywhere. You just start seeing that appreciation, and it starts reshaping your brain. And if you do that every time your watch clicks to stand up, that could be up to 12 times a day that you're doing some sort of gratitude practice.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to write that down.
Thank
It's
you
great.
for our, not just our line level folks, our supervisors, but there is a wellness component also that administrators need to embrace as well. In fact, I think if administrators don't embrace wellness, Mike and I were talking about it earlier this morning. It's kind of one of those, maybe you don't even intend it to be like this, but they're asking us to do this, but chief's not doing it. The command staff's not doing it. But that's a big leap. It's a big leap for a police chief. I had the other day, I had a situation where I think some of my comments were misconstrued, and I could have handled the situation very differently. And instead, I led with curiosity and gratitude. And ultimately, it just came down to a misunderstanding. And being able to show some vulnerability, even from an executive level, is really, really important. And I think more than anything, that's something that builds trust with the folks in your agency.
Yeah.
One of the things we try to also talk a lot about is Stoic philosophy, and recognizing that between all events in life, there's a moment for you to be able to make the decision on how you want to respond to that. There's a difference between reaction and responding. And reacting can be harsh. Reacting can be very quick, snap judgment. Responding is we take a moment, detach from the situation, and then determine how you want your emotions to respond to it. And it's something that I have seen a lot with Chief Hall, where he has, instead of just having that knee-jerk reaction, I'm going to take a moment, detach, and then I'm going to respond. And that's truly what Epictetus taught us was, all events in life are neutral until you make a decision about them. And so once you make that decision, then you can lead with that curiosity instead of just reacting out of anger or emotion or any other type of thing. You have to just take that moment and reflect. Yeah. And Chief Danny Thompson out of Waukesha, he always tells me, take the second.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
And it's phenomenal. And so that reminds me all the time, take that breath. Our parents knew that when we were kids. Count to 10, take a deep breath, whatever they would tell us, to be able to take that moment to detach and then determine, how do I want to respond to this?
Yeah. Emotional regulation is really hard. It's something that, again, you have to practice. And we're never going to be perfect. We can always strive for perfection, and maybe land somewhere in excellence is, the saying that I hear all the time and I like a lot.
That is from the great Vince Gandalf Yoda Lombardi of the Packers. And thank you for sharing that.
I love
Here
that.
we go. Packers.
I'm like, I don't think we have enough time on the podcast to talk about the Packers, but no, I used to call it the tactical pause. I've heard the second. That's something I have to practice a lot myself. There's definitely been more times than I'd like to admit that I have not done that, and I've responded out of emotion. And usually, probably 100% of the time, I've regretted it, because you need to take that step for a second to decide. And when you're able to do that, I think it's ultimate freedom, because it's not your emotions having control over you, it's you having control over your emotions, right? And so I, just like you said, that breath, I always tell people, if you can control the breath, you can control your mind. And then if you can control your mind, you can control your actions and your reactions. So it's a 3-step process. First, start with the breath. Then you create more clarity in the mind. Then you can choose how you want to respond to a particular situation. And it's powerful. It really is, and to have the ability to stay neutral is, I think, something that we should all strive for, because there's always going to be peaks and valleys. But I have like a visual learner mindset, and I think about like these lines of peaks and valleys, right? And they're all over the board. And if you can have a straight line, that's the quickest way through, right? And so this is that line of resiliency. And so for me, resiliency is how quickly can you get back up to that baseline? And we're always going to kind of flutter a little bit, because again, we're not perfect, but I think Stoicism is a perfect example. I think it's something that is really challenging, but if practiced, it's really powerful.
I want to add just one quick thing to that, and I think you both have said it, but it is important to be able to, when something happens, negative or positive, to, as Mike has discussed, it doesn't become a thing until you let it, or you decide how you're going to respond. And I'm reading a book right now called Let Them, which is similar to kind of what we're talking about. But when something happens, you can't control that other person. You can't control whatever it is that happens. And it is how you choose to respond, and taking that second. And it is liberating to understand that and be able to kind of free yourself from that. But that, I guess, feeling can be short-lived, because it's not just how you respond, but I would take it just to that next level. That's where the gratitude and the curiosity piece come into. It's not just, I can't control this situation, so I'm detached, and my response is going to be maybe just move forward or not let this situation bother me. One, recognizing that it did bother you, and that's okay. And then two, not just responding, but that's where that gratitude and curiosity piece really come into play.
Yeah.
And asking more questions.
I love the gratitude and I love the curiosity. And I was thinking, because I didn't touch on the curiosity yet piece of it, but I think when we can ask ourselves why, and we can try to understand where people are coming from, and we can ask ourselves, is there a better way of doing things? It really allows us to grow as individuals. And then, of course, as an organization, it allows you guys to grow as well. And it's sometimes hard to look within ourselves and ask ourselves those questions. Why did I respond that way? Was there a better way that I could have done that? Having that self-assessment, but then also in our processes, right? Like taking a look at the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. Are they effective? Why did someone respond to me in that way? Why was I perceived, that way? And having that curiosity, I think, is really important for growth and longevity. And sometimes we have to have the space in order to do that. And what I have found is that the busier I am, the less I do that. I feel like I'm so inundated and kind of in the trenches and in the grind of everything. And so I've tried to be intentional with creating space to be able to zoom out. And you can do that, on a daily basis. You can do that on a quarterly basis, whatever, works for you. But that's been helpful for me to intentionally set aside time to have those questions, to take a look at what went well and what didn't and why, and how can things be better. And I think it creates a lot of emotional intelligence. It creates a lot of empathy for yourself and for others. And so I love that curiosity piece. And in kind of the realm of curiosity, I'll ask you guys something that I'm really curious of. What is your why with this wellness push? I know that this is something that you are really passionate about. And so I'm curious, what is your why?
If I could just go back for 1 second to what
Sure.
you just closed that part with. A friend of mine once told me wisdom comes from evaluated experience. And from that, what I started doing was at the end of each day, because if I wait a quarter, I won't remember everything I did. And you're right, the day gets so busy and we get so filled with getting pulled in 20 different directions, we don't always get a chance to really reflect on what each of our interactions look like. So at the end of each of my days, for the last over 10 years now, I look at my calendar from the day or the notes that I took from the day, and I reflect on the different conversations that I had, the different meetings I had, and I think about what did I learn? Where did I potentially fall down? Did I fracture any relationships? How did I leave people that I interacted with? Did I leave them in a good place, or were they in a better place because they talked to me that day, or did I lead them down somewhere? And I think about it that way because if we only learned from experience, we'd all be sitting in nursing homes right now talking to all the 80-year-olds, trying to learn from them, going, oh my God, tell me about your life. Tell me what I can learn from you. But that doesn't make you wise experience. It just makes you've been through it. Evaluated experience turns that experience into insight, and over time can turn it into wisdom. And if you can start really driving that, that's where the curiosity part of your brain starts to grow, because you're turning that microscope on yourself. I never, during those moments at the end of the day, do I look at how somebody else treated me, because then you're just going to go to bed feeling angry about that.
Wow.
What did I do? How did I set that up? So with extreme ownership, how could I have had that go better? And so that's just one thing that I do at the end of each day to try to grow myself and to make sure that I'm a better person the next day.
So just kind of from a practice standpoint, so I am less than perfect. In fact, the most imperfect at all of this. My day usually ends with me sitting in the driveway of my house, crying, crying, yeah, often crying.
I'm sure all your life decisions that got you that moment.
Yeah, mostly crying. And my day usually, or used to, I would say, up into just maybe even 2 weeks ago, trying to like take this in and do some self-reflection, sitting in the driveway, checking all the emails, responding back to people I didn't get to respond to during the busy day, calling people, that I wasn't able to connect with that I was supposed to. And then I walk right into the house where I've got my family. My kids want to tell me about their day. My spouse is usually either saying, what do you want for dinner? Or I've got something going. Can you make dinner? And it's just right.
Yeah.
So, and then you have that, like that Kevin Gilmartin rubber band snaps kind of thing. And I'm no different. So I've tried to actually take that time on the drive home. It doesn't work so well on the drive home because you should be paying attention to the road. But if you can't do it while you're at the office because of all the distractions, and especially as an executive, that becomes difficult, then take that time. And when you get home before you step in the door, that's the time that you sit and you reflect on the day You reflect on what happened, and Mike's exactly right. You don't reflect on what people did to you.
Mhm.
You reflect on how you responded, and you also reflect on what you're grateful for within that day, within that week, depending on maybe it might be Thursday or Friday, and you're going into your weekend. And I have found just in the little time I've done that, how much better my interactions are with my family when I step in the door.
Yeah,
And
I
it,
love
it
that.
goes back to taking that second is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I love the word or the phrase extreme ownership. I think that we forget, and I've done this in my life, like we forget how much control we have over ourselves. And there's been so many times where I in my life have pointed my finger at everything else and haven't looked inward. And I think that when we go back to the saying of like control the controllable, right? There's so many things that you can't control, but we can control ourselves and we can control how we show up and how we respond. And so having that idea that like, hey, it's on me. At the end of the day, I'm the one who's responsible for these things. And like the way I'm going to grow and I'm going to learn and I'm going to develop is on me. And of course, it's great when you have other people who are supportive of your wellness and, are helping you and helping to guide you through that. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to take action and to take control over our own lives. So I appreciate you both sharing your experiences with that and things that have worked for you. My question
And
is still there.
remember, every time you point a finger at somebody else, you got three of them pointing
Three.
back at
I say it all the time. I actually, that was also uh, Kate, Kate Hudson used to say that her mom taught her that, and I loved that because it's true. It's like, okay, yes, you can point your finger. There's a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. He's like a really extreme guy, and he has this like a lot of extreme viewpoints on things. But he says everything's your fault. And I kind of resonated with that of like, of course, the things you can't control aren't your fault, but the idea is the things that you can control, like all of it is your fault. Like if you show up in a negative way or a negative mindset, that's on you. If you don't take care of your own wellness, that's on you. No one can make you happy and healthy. That's your happiness and your health is on you. And so I love this like, hey, how can we take ownership of ourselves and control what we can? Because there's a lot of things that we can't, but at least we can control ourselves.
absolutely.
So I come back to my last question. Why is wellness something that's so important to you guys?
Well, I think from an executive standpoint, when we have folks that have wellness as something that's in the forefront of their mind, they're going to be able to respond more effectively to the really horrible situations that they respond to in law enforcement. And I mentioned earlier, it's not just our law enforcement officers.
Right.
Our records team, with the advent of body worn cameras, they get to relive all of that stuff. And they can't get away from it. They're in their cubicles processing all of that raw video footage. And if you're an executive and you are just focusing on your police officers or your deputies, you're missing a huge component of a group of individuals that need wellness also. And that's your records department, that's your victims advocates, the individuals that are there to, help support the awful things that happen to people and those victims. They themselves are primary candidates for making sure you include them in those activities. So yeah, it just comes down to a fit and healthy mentally, spiritually, physically, nutrition. And we are not, like I said before, we are not perfect. I wouldn't say we're brand new in this realm, in this world, but we are, there are a lot of other places that are much farther ahead than we are.
Yeah.
Where the first step is just walking out the door with it and having the intention and the mindset and starting small, and it's just one step after another can create something great. But to answer a question, that is without having something like this in place, um, you're really missing the boat.
Thank you.
So for me, wellness has always been kind of a personal priority. I started really viewing wellness differently. So I've been an academy instructor, defensive tactics, firearms, tactical response. And teaching in the academy, I was able to teach new recruits every way to physically survive a fight, a gunfight. We talked about career survival. How do you survive the courtroom? How do you write good reports? One of my recruits, after graduating from the academy, he went on the road for a sheriff's office. And within his first, I think it was about his first 6 months, he responded to an active shooter event. The active shooter event was so well done by him and another officer that actually they won a Presidential Medal of Valor. The first responding officer did. And I saw him. His name is Tom. I saw him that night and told him how proud I was of how they handled that situation. About 6 months later, Tom was in another gunfight, and an officer performed a traffic stop. The suspect produces a firearm. It was literally for like expired license plates. Like you would not think this was going to be a bad traffic stop, 6 o'clock in the morning. The guy takes a couple shots at the officer. They get into a prolonged high-speed chase that literally went throughout the entire county. And then they had about a 4-hour standoff. And when the Bearcats arrived, where the person was hiding out behind the car, shooting at them every now and then, Bearcats arrived. The guy got out and started walking toward them, going down in a blaze of glory. And it was shortly after that Tom committed suicide. I had been able to teach him every way to survive the moment that you're going to be in a physical confrontation, a tactical response situation, and how to fire a weapon. But we didn't teach him how to survive afterward, how to survive emotionally and carry the burden and the toll that comes with this profession. And that really shifted my whole view of just personal wellness, but also taking care of, from a leadership standpoint, taking care of our people. My academy training changed the way that I did the academy training, my support for our personnel, and really built a strong culture of wellness. In my last agency, that shifted my whole philosophy into peer support, taking care of one another. And toward the end of my career as a chief, I was involved in a critical incident where 2 children died. And out of a department of over 60 officers, I received text messages from every single officer that wasn't on vacation, just checking to see how I was doing. And that's where I saw how we were able to change that culture into a culture of wellness where people were really truly taking care of each other. If they're willing to check on the chief and ask how you're doing, they're checking on each other to take care of each other. And I personally was able to feel the power of that, as well as the way that the whole department responded to those types of situations. So to take care of our personnel, wellness has to be our top priority. They just did a study down in Texas where they found that 19% of the people that responded, the officers that responded, 19% had contemplated suicide at some point in their career.
Wow.
That's 1 in 5 of your people. That was a last year study. That's 2025. Going back to 2020, they did one with 7,000 police officers on the East Coast, and they discovered that over 15% of the officers had contemplated suicide. And I think the number was like 7% within the past previous year.
Wow.
So if you're looking at that many police officers and what's happening to our culture and to our personnel, and that of course that's the gravest where they're committing suicide. But look at the divorce rates in law enforcement. Look at the attrition rates of people just leaving the field or bouncing around every year to 2 years to a different agency. Substance abuse, alcohol abuse. There's all kinds of different paths that people are taking where it's not as extreme as suicide. The better we can model that behavior and normalize it and reduce the stigma and let everybody know it doesn't matter who you are, even if you're the chief of police, we all need support. We all need to take care of one another. We start realizing we're all in this together, and going to talk to a therapist, talk to a chaplain, talk to peer support isn't weird. It's not out of the norm. It is the norm. In fact, if you don't reach out for help, that's out of the norm. So like one of the mantras we used a lot was it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay there. You have to be willing to at least seek the help. Recognize when you're slipping. And I think that's where we need to get families more involved. When Tom committed suicide, we discovered that all of the plaques, all the awards, he had them up in his attic. That's showing that, he wasn't proud of those moments. Didn't want to relive those moments. But his fiance had no idea what that was a sign of or what that's indicative of. Not her fault, not in any way, shape, or form. We have to bring our families into this so that they can say, hey, my spouse is not feeling or doesn't appear to be acting normal lately. Could you have somebody talk to them with no judgment, with only curiosity, and with only a support to help?
I think too, kind of involving in that, you can't just expect to have spouses reach out. They need to receive training too. Here coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to have a family support night that we're hosting here at the police department. And we've contracted with 2 master's level clinicians that come in and they do that second level work within the police department, referrals from peer support. And they're going to help us. We're hosting a family night, so there'll be some type of a get together along with training from them for families. And so that, the spouses can understand those changes in behavior that they might see in their loved one and know that there are resources out there to call rather than just not knowing what to do or not knowing where to go. So I think that's something really cool that Mike has brought to our department as well, in conjunction with our clinicianists.
Thank you. I appreciate that both of you, when you explained the why, it was really the lives of the people who work with you, right? Like at the end of the day, how can we recognize that these are people, these are human beings? How can we support them to the best of our ability? And I don't want to keep saying all these like little slogans, but every time you say a little slogan, I think of a new one. But the one thing that popped up in my head is, if it's predictable, it's preventable. And we take a look at all of these numbers, these stats, like we understand what could happen if the resources aren't there, or if action isn't taken in the steps of getting those resources and that help that they need. We take a look at suicide numbers. We take a look at divorce rates. We take a look at substance abuse. If you can see those numbers and that's predictable, then it is preventable. And so how can we work backwards and put in place the resources that can help to reduce that risk as much as possible? And I know that that's, the focus that you guys have taken is, how can you be proactive and preventative in your approach to providing the resources that your team needs? I feel like we could talk for another hour, and I know that we're going to run out of time here. And so I want to ask one little short question, and then I have one final question for you guys. But any advice that you guys can give to other leaders out there into taking action and actually implementing some of these things? And so it's not just talking about it, it's actually converting these conversations into action that is meaningful.
I would start just by saying that from a leader's perspective, it does start with the intent and the true intent to make a change. And then an organization, I think, that I've seen really come a long way with helping in wellness programs, and that's IACP. In fact, they now have their own. We just got back from it in New Orleans, the IACP Safety and Wellness Conference. And the IACP has a myriad of different resources on wellness and how to get programs up and running. But it really just does start small. And it maybe isn't just you if you're the executive in a police department. More than likely, there's a sheriff's department in your region. More than likely, there's a fire department. You may even, share that with the municipality. And those are all individuals that have the same grouping of things they respond to, the horrible things. And so they may be looking at it too from that perspective. And so then it becomes a group effort and not just a you alone effort as you share resources. It's something that we work together with our sheriff's department and our fire department from a peer support perspective. And then a group that you also may not think of in that realm. A lot of agencies now employ mental health co-responders, and they too have a wealth of knowledge and resources. Maybe not necessarily directly in that vein of wellness for law enforcement, but they can absolutely be a resource if you try to start a program.
Thank you.
So, a couple different things are going through my mind. First, as a executive, you have to be authentic and be vulnerable. If you want your people to admit that they have faults or that they have holes, you have to show that you do too. Our personnel try to model the behavior that they see from the leadership. And if you show that you're perfect and that you accept nothing less than perfect, they're not going to be willing to come talk to you.
Yeah.
So you have to be authentic and admit your own faults, apologize when that's right, and be vulnerable and let people know. In the state of Wisconsin, we created the law enforcement death response team created an executive peer support team because even chiefs and sheriffs need somebody to talk to. So they can talk to other anonymously, they can talk to other executives, chiefs and sheriffs or retired chiefs and sheriffs about what complexities they're dealing with. We all need someone in our corner. We all need someone that's fighting the battle with us. In addition to that, how do you incorporate something into your department? There's a lot of free programs that you can work on. For example, we work with a financial advisor that we'll give all of our personnel the first 4 visits free to come and talk to them and make sure that they are set and sound for retirement. Finances are one of the key things that cause people stress and anxiety. And so to know that you're going to be able to retire with the appropriate amount of money to be able to retire and live a happy life, of the life that you want to live, you can find advisors in your community that will provide that for you. There's programs like Wills for Heroes to make sure that people's wills are set up. There's chaplains that will do completely free services to police departments. Peer support teams, once you train them, that doesn't have to cost you a dime. And I know that it can be challenging to build all these wellness programs, but if you're an executive and you're a member of IACP or the National Sheriff's Association, there's a group called CRITAC, CRITAC. They will actually fund people, specialists and subject matter experts to come in and help you build a wellness program in your organization. No cost at all to you. They will actually facilitate that and pay for the whole way to be able to get you set up. So taking that and recognizing there's grants, there's LEMWA grants, there's funding opportunities, there's people in your communities that want to volunteer to help you out. We had personal trainers that would come in for free of charge. We had dietitians that would come in for free of charge just because they want to be able to help your agency, your police and firefighters. So use your community members, use the grants that are available. And then other than that, lead with that authenticity and vulnerability so your people are willing to open up and admit they have faults also.
Thank you. Final question for you before we wrap for the day. What words of wisdom would you share with the younger employee who's walking into this profession today? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier in your career that could have helped you out, or something that's helped you along the way that you want to pass on to them. Words of wisdom.
I guess for me, it's wellness is pay now or pay later. You can skip the workout today, and then you can have high blood pressure and diabetes and everything else down the road. You can skip the therapist appointment today and have emotional and mental baggage that paralyzes you in the future. Right now, wellness truly is pay now or pay later. Take the opportunities right now. Get rid of the stigma. Get it out of your head that you're better than everybody else or that you don't need anybody else. I was 21, 22 years old. I actually started this job when I was 18 going on 19. So I believed that I knew everything, that I didn't need to have any other help. And every day since then, I've gotten dumber. I recognize the more and more that I need support, I need assistance, I need help. So reach out for that now and make it a habit. Make it a habit to get in the gym. Make it a habit to eat healthy. Make it a habit to talk to people. If you haven't read a book in the last year, crack a book, find one, mentally stimulate yourself, and be gracious. Live that gratitude that we've been talking about, and that will reshape your life.
Thank you.
I would just have to say it goes fast. Before you know it, you're looking at retirement. And so just to add, I agree with everything that Mike just said. Something that I wish I would have known earlier, and this is really difficult, and it's not that I am any way disparaging my brothers in blue. I lost a lot of relationships when I first started because I had become a police officer. I probably didn't water those relationships as well as I should have. It was my fault that I lost those relationships. And those were with non-law enforcement individuals. When you're in law enforcement, you have a tendency to surround yourself with other law enforcement officers because you know what each other is going through. But that can also play a role and be a detriment. There is life outside of law enforcement, and when you surround yourself with nothing but cop friends, you can become jaded because quite honestly, you're going to talk about work and you're going to talk about those calls because you're actually practicing a role of peer support. It was peer support before it even came peer support. You're being able to release that emotion. Don't forget that society, citizens, people, there's still tons of good people out there. And you are a sum of as Mike says, the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And just don't forget to season those individuals with a few non-law enforcement and positive people that are forward-looking. And maybe you don't lead with gratitude and maybe you don't lead with curiosity. So surround yourself with people who do, and it'll come.
I love it. Thank you both so much for coming on here today. Chief Hall, Mr. Mike, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I loved this conversation. I wish that we could talk for another 3 hours. So I know our listeners heard exactly what I heard when we first connected and how passionate you are about wellness and taking care of your people and leadership. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you.